Please be seated. Your Excellency, President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, here represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Your Excellencies, Deputy Governors here present, the National Security Advisor, Service Chiefs and their representatives, the Chairman of the Police Service Commission, Chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, members of the National Assembly here present, and heads of paramilitary agencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to welcome you to the national opening ceremony of the workshop called the Election Security Management Workshop, which is being organized by the Office of the National Security Advisor in collaboration with Solar Security and Consult Company and Partners West Africa, Nigeria, with the theme, Pathway to a Credible Electoral Process in Nigeria, with barely 2 months to the kickoff of voting in the 2019 general elections, and indeed with electioneering now in full swing, the significance of election security management cannot be overemphasized. And that is why we are here in this auditorium.
Good morning. Welcome to this live telecast on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA. My name is Ronke Kolawole. I'd like to welcome you to the opening ceremony of Election Security Management Workshops organized by the Office of the National Security Advisor in collaboration with Solar Security and Consult Company Limited and Partners West Africa, Nigeria. The theme is Pathway to a Credible Electoral Process in Nigeria. You're welcome. As Nigerians look forward to the 2019 general elections, there are fears in some quarters that some groups are planning to cause stalemate that could affect the conduct of the election. Even security operatives raised this alarm and warned the media against the activities of some unregistered groups that had been active in trying to undermine these critical institutions, such as the law enforcement agencies and INEC. This is why this workshop is being organized by the Office of the National Security Advisor. He's now ready to give his opening remark. I'm talking about the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Monguno. Let's wait for his opening remark.
The representative of His Excellency the President, in the person of the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, Chairman of INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, representatives of the governors of Bauchi and Benue States, Chairman, House Committee on National Security and Intelligence, Honorable Aminu Sani Jaji, Chairman, Police Service Commission, former IGP Musliu Smith, the Chief of Defense Intelligence, the Controller General of the Nigeria Customs Service, Chairman NDLEA, representatives of the Chief of Defense Staff and the Service Chiefs, representative of the Inspector General of Police, former Inspectors General of Police, members of the National Assembly, members of the diplomatic community, heads of the various security agencies, members of the press, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. It is with a deep sense of responsibility and a firm commitment to the advancement of the democratic values of our beloved country, that I welcome His Excellency, President Muhammadu Buhari, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, represented here today by Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, other guests and officers of the various security agencies to this all-important event. The Election Security Management Workshop being organized by the Office of the National Security Advisor for officers of the armed forces, the Nigeria Police, and indeed other security agencies, whose performance will be critical to the successful conduct of the 2019 general elections, is significant in several ways. First, it marks for the first time in the history of Nigeria that the Office of the National Security Advisor, in furtherance to its mandate, will ensure that all relevant security agencies are coordinated at the most strategic national level for the purpose of deepening their knowledge and sharpening their professional capacity for the fundamental objective of ensuring a general election that will not only be peaceful, but policed within the context of the rule of law and best global practices. Secondly, the initiative in itself is a further manifestation of the firm determination of the federal government to advance our democratic journey by emplacing a new security orientation that is focused on creating a conducive atmosphere for citizens to exercise their voting rights. Mr. President, in his speech at the 72nd session of the United Nations General Assembly, stated that, I quote, "Our faith in democracy remains firm and unshakable," end of quote. The armed forces, police, and other security agencies will work as a team and deliver a knowledge-driven, citizen-friendly, professionally led, and rule of law guided election security operation. This will produce an electoral outcome credible enough to strengthen the faith of all Nigerians and indeed the international community in our democracy. Your Excellency, it may be noted that in the past there have been concerns within and outside the country on challenges relating to the capacity of law enforcement agencies deployed on electoral operations, as well as operational issues touching on synergy between the different law enforcement agencies in the course of election security functions. Now, this development results mainly from the wide knowledge gap of security agencies on the professional requisites for election security agencies for election security management in a democratic setting, a gap this training intends to fill. It is believed that the training will act as a veritable tool and interactive forum for perfecting the operational coordination process between the Nigeria Police and other complementary security agencies that will be deployed for electoral functions all across the country. This workshop which is under the theme Election Security Management, Pathway to a Credible Electoral Process in Nigeria, is designed as a train-the-trainer model to ensure that officers who participate can return to their agencies and transfer the knowledge gained and undertake on-the-job orientation for their colleagues. For ease of delivery of the lectures, the training has been decentralized and will hold at 4 centers across the country, comprising of Abuja, Kano, Ibadan, and Oka, to enable participants attend at centers close to their locations. Renowned facilitators have been engaged to deliver lectures to participants on topics that cover the legal framework of elections in Nigeria, security threat analysis, the role of political stakeholders and other actors in election security, human rights issues, security for vulnerable groups during elections, role of security agencies in the electoral process, electoral crisis management, electoral offenses and punishments, civil societies and monitoring of the electoral process, media expected at the training by participants, enhanced knowledge of security agents, stronger interagency collaboration, security 19 judges, peculiar security approach electoral security fund that will act as a template for future elections at all levels in Nigeria and reference for all security agencies and other strategic stakeholders within the electoral architecture of the country. I wish to, at this juncture, appreciate Mr. President for supporting this initiative. The presence of His Excellency's representative here is a clear statement of Mr. President's genuine intention to ensure that all appropriate steps are pursued to ensure the success and credibility of the 2019 general elections. Now, this is extremely important to those of us in the security community. I wish to assure Mr. President, and indeed the entire country, of the commitment of the leadership of all security agencies to the advancement of his vision for a credible, free, and fair electoral process in Nigeria. In this regard, neutrality, operational efficiency, patriotism, and professionalism will be the watchwords of all security agencies that will be deployed for the election security operations during the 2019 general elections. May I also state that in the face of threats to our democratic values and sacred electoral process, security agencies will be oriented and charged to be firm and decisive in identifying, isolating, and neutralizing such threats in the interest of our national security. I once again thank Your Excellency and all our guests for gracing this opening ceremony. May the Almighty God continue to bless our country. Thank you very much.
That was the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Bangono, delivering his welcome statement at this ceremony. Once again, another round of applause for his comments. So let's proceed rapidly, and I wish at this time to invite the head of the election management body, who of course is not only here in person, but also has members of his management team, that's to say the INEC, and that's Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, Chairman of INEC, to please step forward and give his remarks.
The representative of His Excellency, the President, the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Your Excellencies, Deputy Governors, members of the National Assembly, service chiefs, serving or retired, chairmen, leaders, and candidates representing the various political parties, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Independent National Electoral Commission, I wish to thank the National Security Advisor for organizing this workshop on the management of election security in Nigeria. This is timely, coming just 64 days to the opening of polling units at 8 in the morning on Saturday, 16th February 2019, Nigerian time. We have been working over the years with all security agencies under the auspices of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, ICSES. At the national level, the National Security Advisor and I co-chair the committee. At state level, the committee is co-chaired by the Commissioners of Police and our resident electoral commissioners, while at the local government level, the DPOs and our electoral officers serve as co-chairmen of the committee. I am glad that this arrangement, including the level of involvement of each security agency under the leadership of the Nigeria Police, has helped us in securing the environment for peaceful elections. I want to emphasize the fact that the police remains the lead agency in election security in Nigeria. Other security agencies will continue to play roles outside the voting areas and consistent with the clearly defined rules of engagement which emphasize professionalism and neutrality. Over the next few weeks, INEC plans to engage with the security agencies in a number of workshops nationwide intended to build capacity and to re-emphasize the importance of professionalism and neutrality. I wish to emphasize that INEC, in collaboration with the security agencies, intends to fully apply the provisions of Section 29, subsection 3 of the Electoral Act 2010 as amended, which places in INEC the sole responsibility for requesting the deployment of relevant security personnel necessary for elections, and assign them in a manner determined by the Commission in collaboration with the security agencies. We will work with the security agencies in the deployment of relevant security personnel and to assign them accordingly. INEC will remain responsible for the conduct of elections. The security agencies will continue to provide security. The process of conducting elections shall remain the responsibility of INEC. We shall guard and protect the sanctity of the ballot and the choice made by Nigerians. The 2019 general elections will be inclusive. All eligible citizens will have the right to vote and to do so in peace and security. May I seize this opportunity to clarify the decision taken by the Commission to ensure that internally displaced persons vote in the 2019 general elections as they vote in the 2015 general elections. However, this is only limited to internally displaced persons residing in Nigeria. No internally displaced persons actually reside outside the country. In fact, the term internally displaced only applies to those internally displaced within Nigeria and not refugees residing in other countries. There is no diaspora voting for all categories of citizens. Once again, I want to thank the National Security Advisor and the co-chair of ICSES for this forum. We look forward to more interactions as we are including robust discussions and preparations through regular engagement at meetings of the Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security. On behalf of INEC, I thank you very much for listening.
Underscoring the importance of security to election, the chairman INEC, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu, gave assurance of professionalism and neutrality in the conduct of the 2019 general election. He also said INEC will work with security agencies to deploy officers accordingly and will guide and protect the sanctity of the ballot and choice made by Nigeria, and that the election will be all-inclusive. He also clarified that there will not be diaspora voting in 2019, but that IDPs residing in Nigeria will be permitted to vote. You are still watching this live telecast of Election Security Management Workshop organized by the Office of the National Security Advisor. Theme: Pathway to a Credible Electoral Process in Nigeria, from the International Conference Center in Abuja.
That security matters do not pertain only to voting day. Pre-election, election, and post-election. And that's why the security agencies are all very relevant. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me now invite the Chief of Defense Staff to give his remarks at this ceremony, but it's been represented by AVM EO Anabi.
His Excellency, President, Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Muhammadu Buhari, ably represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the Chief Host of this event, the National Security Advisor, Major General M.B. Mogono, retired. Please permit me to rest on the already established protocol. On behalf of the Chief of Defense Staff, General A.G. Olonishaki Nigerian Army Medal. I wish to congratulate the organizers of this election security management workshop for this very laudable initiative. Let me use this opportunity to state that the armed forces of Nigeria remains apolitical and is totally committed to the holding of a peaceful, fair, and credible elections come 2019. On our part, we have continued to sensitize our personnel on to be non-partisan and to remain and to go out and exercise their franchise during the elections. In this connection, we have also produced a code of conduct for our personnel before, during, and after the elections. I therefore wish to reiterate that we will only carry out our constitutional roles and not meddle in the elections. I want to assure the international community that our armed forces will remain completely and totally apolitical come 2019. We enjoin all political parties to avoid any acts that would jeopardize the peace and security of our nation. On this note, I wish to thank the organizers for this initiative, and we hope that we'll have very peaceful and credible elections come 2019. Thank you.
That was assurance coming from the Air Force to continue to sensitize its personnel towards peaceful election. I also reiterated that it will carry out its constitutional roles and not meddle in electoral conduct. We all know the importance of security to election process. This is the premise of the peace accord being signed by political parties' presidential candidates, and this is also indicating the commitment of these presidential candidates to peaceful elections. A situation, a beautiful art commended, which was commended by Major General Babagana Munguno in his opening remarks.
Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, ably represented by the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa, the National Security Advisor, General B.M. Mongunu, retired, the Chairman of INEC, Professor Mohammed Yakub, and other distinguished guests here present. Permit me to stand on the well-established protocol and to present the message of the Inspector General of Police, IGP Ibrahim K. Idris, MPM, MNI, to this gathering. My comments. Let me start by thanking the National Security Advisor for deeming it necessary to organize this workshop for security agencies in Nigeria with the theme Election Security Management, Pathway to Credible Electoral Process, to discuss practical ways of delivering free, fair, credible elections in Nigeria. This is very commendable, as it will afford the security agencies in the election security space to examine our performances in the previous elections and suggest ways of improving on them for more credible elections in the future. Nigeria, especially in the 2019 general elections scheduled to commence in February 2019. It is the responsibility of the Nigeria Police Force as the foremost internal security agency, complemented by other security agencies, to provide adequate security for elections both at the national, state, and local governments in Nigeria. The task involves gathering intelligence around the election to forestall any violence before, during, and after the elections. the physical protection and safety of electoral personnel, both permanent and ad hoc staff, the protection of electoral materials during and after the elections until the results are collated and announced. What is important and what must be appreciated by all is that the above duties cannot be successfully achieved without the support and collaboration of other security agencies and the citizens. It is when we work together by sharing intelligence and manpower that we can better deliver credible elections. All the previous elections, the other security agencies effectively collaborated with the police, hence the elections were hitch-free. I thank all of you for the support. Like Oliver Twist, I call on all of you once again to collaborate more with the police in the coming 2019 general elections for better and more credible elections in Nigeria. The greatest challenges of the police and the other security agencies in the provision of security for elections are the conduct of our brothers and friends in politics. Politicians must imbibe and internalize the culture of non-violence politics. Elections must not be a do-or-die affair. They should avoid conducts which may precipitate violence before, during, and after the elections. Politicians should make their campaigns issues-based rather than attacking one another candidates. On the day of election, politicians must avoid canvassing, solicitations for votes, wearing of party insignias, dissuading voters from voting for candidates of their choice, vote buying, loitering, and blaring of siren. Anybody found indulging in these acts will be arrested and prosecuted in accordance with the electoral laws. Let me assure you that the police will not be deterred in ensuring credible elections in Nigeria. The police is constantly training and building capacity on election duties. I can say with certainty that all strategic operational plans for its credible 2019 general elections have been concluded. We will keep reappraising them until the actual election date. What is gratifying in this resolve is that the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces, His Excellency Muhammadu Buhari, GCFR, is committed to credible elections in 2019. The police will not waver in its resolve to actualize this vision of Mr. President, to deepen the respect of Nigeria in the community of democratic nations. Thank you for listening.
The Nigeria Police Force is the main security agency saddled with the responsibility of maintaining internal security of the nation. And in the speech of the IGP Ibrahim Idris to this all-important election security management workshop, he gave assurance of physical protection of ad hoc staff and electoral materials throughout the election process and called for more collaboration with other security agencies, urging politicians to internalize peaceful conduct of election into the process, and also warned them not to canvass for vote or buy vote during the election.
2019 elections, we have only 19 political parties. And we have 73 so far candidates who are seeking to become president of the Federal Republic. And so the contest is a keen one, but even at a time when we had fewer political parties, we still had issues with regard to election security. So the significance, one more time, of election security management cannot be overemphasized. In recent times, we have seen the phenomenon of the so-called see and buy, which of course has been done in clever ways. We're going to face a general election. How will the security agencies respond to that? The NSA has indicated that part of the expected outcome is comprehension of the Electoral Act and guidelines so that the law enforcement agents would know how to proceed. Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, may I now respectfully invite the President, Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic to deliver his statement at the opening ceremony of the workshop. But His Excellency the President is being represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Mr. Boss Mustafa. The SGF, please.
Your Excellencies, the Deputy Governors here present, the National Security Advisor, members of the National Assembly, the Chairman of INEC and National Commissioners of INEC here present, the representative of the Chief of Defense Staff and other service chiefs, the representative of the IG, the Chief of Defense Intelligence. Permit me to stand on existing protocol already established. Before I read Mr. President's address, let me thank Professor Mahmoud Yakubu for reminding those of us that are politicians and also election managers that we've got only 64 days to the opening of polls. This is a good reminder because in my very short lifespan, I've participated in several elections, even as a student activist, starting from the days of 4 or 5 political parties in 1979. That was the first time I voted in this country. And since then, I've been an active participant, running through 83, 88, or 87 during the election on non-party basis, then 1990 local government elections, 91 under the Babangida administration, and all other subsequent elections. So I'm always familiar with the rise in the temperature as the days approach. But the beauty about our country is that we've always been able to persevere and endure, even when the temperatures are high. And I believe that this workshop is a milestone workshop in the annals of our evolving democracy because of the level of preparations that are being put in place. My hope is that lessons and instructions that will be taken from here would help the security architecture that will be involved with the management of the election process. So thank you for reminding us that we've just got 64 days. There's a lot to cover, there's a lot to do, but I can assure you at the end of the day, Nigeria would win. Thank you so much. The remarks of the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. In my acceptance speech on 1st April 2015, following my election as President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I affirmed my unwavering commitment to Nigerians to promote free, fair, and credible elections that are devoid of any form of interference in the activities of INEC. I also assured the nation of my firm commitment to ensuring a secure and violence-free electoral process, abide by the extant laws governing the political landscape, and adhere strictly to the code of conduct of political parties in Nigeria. These assertions were informed by my conviction that no nation can advance its democratic culture under a security orientation that does not assure the voters of their personal safety and the safety of the votes in the electoral process. The task of ensuring this, ladies and gentlemen, rests squarely on the shoulders of the Nigerian police as the lead security agency under the Electoral Act, and other complementary security agencies, including the armed forces. The initiative of the Office of the National Security Advisor to organize this workshop is therefore a right and well-informed action that would undoubtedly advance our vision in this regard. I therefore commend the Office of the National Security Advisor for this innovative workshop. Ladies and gentlemen, it is pertinent to note that lots of positive changes have been implemented in our electoral laws and processes in a bid to strengthen our electoral culture and ensure that votes are not disenfranchised either by actions or inactions of actors or institutions that are constitutionally charged with the responsibility of driving the process. As we draw closer to the 2019 general elections, I want to reaffirm my commitment towards further entrenching these democratic values. As the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, I am committed to upholding the independence of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, as this is a sacred pathway towards our democracy. This stand explains the successes that INEC recorded in the conduct of the gubernatorial elections in Ekiti, Anambra, Ondo, and Edo states, and the by-elections in some other states where candidates in both the ruling and opposition parties have won elections. I assure the nation of my determination to sustain this standard and to continually extend all requisite support to INEC in order to ensure the attainment of their mandate without any executive interference. Ladies and gentlemen, the will of the people must always drive the democratic process of our nation. Therefore, the sanctity of the process must be upheld by all political parties and other stakeholders across political divide if the country is to attain its full potentials. It is also against this backdrop that my party, the All Progressives Congress, APC, has decided to adopt the direct primaries so that power can, in practical terms, be restored back to the people in determining who represents them. It is also within this context that I assented to the Not Too Young to Run bill, which empowers and motivates our vibrant, youthful population to become politically change agents in our country. It is recognized that the success of the electoral process depends largely on the professionalism demonstrated by the security agencies. I am committed to ensuring that all security agencies perform their constitutional obligation in a strictly professional and impartial manner, so as to guarantee the security of all citizens, particularly during electoral engagements. In this regard, I am glad to note that the National Security Advisor has assured that appropriate leadership is being provided for the purpose of coordinating the Nigerian police and all participating agencies towards ensuring a peaceful and secured general election come 2019. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has also demonstrated his readiness and commitment to conduct free, fair, and credible elections in 2019, as observed in the recent elections conducted in some states across the country. While it is acknowledged that there are still challenges in the process, I believe in the competence and strength of character of the INEC chairman and his commissioners to surmount these challenges and guide the nation to a successful election. I will want to once again reassure the international community that Nigeria shall continue to advance the democratic credentials within the global space. Indeed, Nigeria's commitment to democratic values underscores the leadership roles the country has demonstrated in enhancing of democracy processes in Mali, Sierra Leone, Liberia, Niger, Gambia, and the Guinea-Bissau. In concluding, I urge the participants of this workshop to take advantage of this opportunity to enhance their professional knowledge and be prepared to deploy knowledge to begin towards sharpening their operational competencies in future elections in Nigeria. On this note, it is my pleasure to declare this workshop open, and I wish you all a very successful engagement. God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Thank you for listening.
President Muhammadu Buhari, represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Boss Mustafa, and he has commended the workshop, describing it as the right and well-informed action. He also promised to sustain the standard and process of election and support INEC to fulfill its mandate to Nigerians without interference.
Take a look at your program. You will find that what we have next is a presentation of a souvenir by the National Security Advisor to Mr. President, of course, who has been represented by the SGF. The souvenir that is about to be presented is the handiwork of a gentleman known as Success Eshijoge Adewole. The artist is a Nigerian digital artist who hails from Edo State. A graduate of oil and gas engineering from Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology in Ghana. He currently works at a farm outlet here in Abuja, but is maximizing his potentials in photography and personalized digital art as a passion. This he has translated into a concept of this unique digital artwork depicting the personality of President Muhammadu Buhari and the commitment of Mr. President to Nigeria's democratic evolution. The piece of work is entitled The Ideal Democratic Patriot, and it's the most outstanding and largest project ever undertaken by Success Eshijoge Adewole. Congratulations. And may I now respectfully invite the National Security Advisor to, of course, be accompanied by National Security Advisor General Babangana Monguno to make the presentation of the souvenir to His Excellency Mr. President, represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation. The NSA, please. All right, so let's appreciate Yeah, you have the cameramen blocking the view of the guests in the auditorium. But regardless, I'm sure once they make way, they'll be able to appreciate in fuller view the digital.
Just the I don't understand.
It's what I referred to in my opening remarks. The President's comment during the second session of the United Nations General Assembly in 2017. And the quotation is, "Our faith in democracy remains firm and unshaken." President Muhammad Buhari at the United Nations General Assembly, 72nd session. And here we see the President doing what he knows what to do best. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, National Security Advisor, General Monguno, for that presentation. So, Mr. President, received by the Secretary to the government. That's right. Success. Don't wash that hand after this event. All right, Your Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, let me now invite the Director in charge of the Directorate of Internal Security in the Office of the National Security Advisor to give his vote of thanks. And after the vote of thanks, there will be a group photograph. The location for the group photograph will be right here in front of the platform. We will have those who are on the front row join the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, representing Mr. President, the National Security Advisor, the Deputy Governors, and indeed other dignitaries to come forward and take the group photograph after the vote of thanks. So the Directorate of Internal Security, Office of the National Security Advisor.
Mr. President, ably represented by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, permit me to stand on all existing protocols. On behalf of the National Security Advisor, Major General Babagana Monguno, retired, I wish to express our profound appreciation to Your Excellency and all our distinguished guests for gracing this opening ceremony with your presence. The President's resolve and commitment to delivering a credible, free and fair 2019 general elections remains steadfast. The election security management training for the Nigeria Police Force, the armed forces, and other security and intelligence agencies is a first, directly driven by the Office of the National Security Advisor. The National Security Advisor will continue to ensure capacity building of all security agencies in order to achieve the goal of a peaceful, democratic transition during the 2019 general elections. We sincerely thank Your Excellency and all our distinguished guests and pray for your safe return to your respective homes and offices. May the Almighty God bless our nation, Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you very much, the Director in charge of the Directorate of Internal Security, the Office of the National Security Advisor.
Well, we like to thank you so much for watching this live telecast on Election Security Management Workshop organized by the Office of the National Security Advisor. It has the theme, Pathway to a Credible Electoral Process in Nigeria, and 200 police officers and other personnel from paramilitary agencies About 200 of them are expected to participate in the workshop. On behalf of
on the staircase, so come back. Your hand in the no, my home do okay. Losing a white shot. This is journey to go. Hold on.
And just before we close, an announcement. Participants at the Abuja workshop, you are kindly requested to wait after the departure of the SGF because your training starts right now. Your Excellencies, very distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, to close, let's take the...
As INEC prepares for the 2019 general elections, the security agencies are also putting their acts together to ensure that the upcoming election is conducted in a peaceful atmosphere. That rounds off the opening ceremony of Election Security Management Workshop with the theme Pathway to a Credible Electoral Process in Nigeria. The workshop will kick off immediately after this opening ceremony at the International Conference Center, Abuja. On behalf of the outside broadcast crew, I thank you so much for coming along with us. I am Ronke Kolawole.
NTA, you can't beat the rich. A settlement is a community in which people live. It can range in size from a small number of dwellings grouped together to the largest of cities with surrounding urbanized areas. Settlements may include hamlets, villages, towns, and cities. A settlement may have known historical properties, such as the date or era in which it was first settled by a people. In Africa today, many ancient settlements remain significant in the lives of a people for historical purposes and in today's world as places of tourism importance. Rategiwa Hills are an array of hills which cover a wide area and situated in Rijau local government area, Niger State, north-central Nigeria. It is the settlement area of Sanda, the founder of the town Rijau and his people, and of Dukawa tribe. Before Sanda and his people moved up the Rategiwa Hills to fully settle, they first settled at a place called Tukurgog, now called Tungan Anini, a few kilometers from the present-day Rijau town. Therefore, Tukurgog was the first settlement of the Dukawas who migrated through Katsina axis. When threats of wars became imminent, Sanda and his people moved up the mountain, which is today termed the Rategiwa Hills, a place he had since discovered during his hunting expedition. At Tukurgog, Sanda lived with his people, who included Konjok, whose family were in charge of houses, Gajem, that is the family of Galadima, Magaji, and Pa'ar, whose family were the blacksmiths, amongst others. One point of historical and virtually of tourism significance east of Tukurgog is a stone called Taru Adama. It was the point where members of the palace family lived. Just before the stone, there is a point where two footpaths meet. It was where the people of Sanda met when they carried a corpse of a dead person who died of unusual circumstances and would not be buried on the Rategiwa Hill.
One interesting thing about them is, should somebody die in any of these villages, they had to pass through Tukurgog again to come and bury this person here in their old ancestral home, which is what the Hausas call Kango. This is the Kango of the Dukawa people, the Kwako to be precise. Then, should somebody die of snake bite, or a woman who had conceived and in the process of labor, she died, she is not buried here. She is buried in Tukurgog. But if somebody dies a natural death, that person is not buried in Tukurgog. He or she is brought to the old traditional city, the old historical city, and is buried.
The name Rategiwa, which means someone who hangs elephants in English language, is synonymous to Sanda, the founder of Rijau and the traditional head of the Dukawas. He was first referred to as such by his friend Sambo, a Fulani cattle rearer who came around the hills to rear his cattle and found that there were signs of human existence on the hills, signified by smoke from fire on the hill. Sanda was indeed a great hunter who hunted elephants and buffaloes, among other animals.
But by the time Sanda himself now shot an elephant, that is Giwa, Sambo was in a distance watching what Sanda was doing. Then Sanda is described as a huge giant. After killing this Giwa, this elephant, he took this elephant and now to his shoulders. Then Sambo now approached Sanda and said, very important, Kai bawan Allah nan ka rataya giwa. That is where that name, rataya giwa, came from. Each time Sambo wants to send any of his children to Sanda, he says, Kuje inda ratagiwa, wannan mutum da ya rataya giwa, referring to Sanda. So the name became an official name for that man who is Sanda, and now bearing Ratagiwa because he was described as a great hunter, a giant, and at the same time, the king of the Tukawa people. Because legitimately, his father was the person who instituted the traditional kingship institution in Tukurugok until they left there to this area. Are you getting it? So that was how the name Ratagiwa now came to stay.
No wonder Dukawas inherited the hunting prowess of their forefather, a trait they still hold in high esteem. Hunters in the Dukawa tradition are recognized and honored on account of the kinds of animals they are able to hunt.
I know there are some animals that can kill, but definitely are people who don't fear it. When they go to the bush, before going to the bush, they will prepare. We apply this our traditional medicine and other things to see that even if sometimes when we are at their own mix, some of our hunters disappear. And there's this elephant. Sometimes if you shoot it, it will make sure that wherever you are, they will struggle to get you. If you can't get it, it will kill you there. And that's why sometimes our people need to prepare. Before shooting it, you have to be sure of yourself. Like the other head that I show you. We have Bauna there, we have Gwenki there. So therefore our people, they are always out for it because it is this one that will make your name to be pronounced as a hunter. If you didn't kill any of this one, even if they are beating the traditional game of the hunters, you cannot go into the field and dance.
The Rategiwa Hill, as it is today, houses some historical places of tourism significance. For example, a tourist has an opportunity of seeing the stones on which Sanda and Sambo, his friend, sat whenever Sambo visited Sanda, whom he nicknamed Rategiwa. Rategiwa would sit on a stone high up, while Sambo sat on a stone just below him. They would have their conversation, after which Sambo would leave through the usual route he came. Their friendship continued until they went to meet Othman and Fodio, who gave Sanda sword as symbol of authority as the traditional head of the Dukawas, and Sambo was given the Islamic flag, being a Muslim. Traditionally, up the Rategiwa hill, Sanda, his people and his descendants who lived on the hill had a shrine where they carried out their traditional worship. The shrine is still there for visitors and tourists to view. Myth has it that even today, the collection of stones which served as the prayer point cannot be kept away from their original positions. It was attempted in recent times, and those who picked some of the stones and took them down the Rategiwa hill had to return them due to the discomfort they experienced. Sanda and his people did move to settle on top of the hill in consideration of their security during wars at that time. Up the Rategiwa hill, they were at a vantage point to spot any adversary approaching. Aside that, we were shown the point of the cave where women, children, and the weak were hidden once there were wars, leaving the warriors to defend the entire territory. Security, no doubt, is of great importance at all times.
During the war times, this was the opening of the cave, where the people who would not participate in the battle enter. The cave would open after prayers are said, with a plea to the stone covering the cave to open. Once it opened, the whole people would enter, leaving the warriors to defend the territory.
Hakan yi haka ne don su buya, amma jarumai suna nan a sama suna kallon dukkan inda abokan gaba za su fito. Wannan dukin nan ne ake shiga, shi ake kira fa kubaba yaro.
Our exploration also reveals that even in ancient times, when they lived on the Rategiwa hills, Dukkawas had a well-structured legislative and judicial systems. This baobab tree and its surroundings served as the legislative assembly where elders met and deliberated on issues of general interest and passed resolution which would be conveyed to the traditional head at that time for approval and onward implementation. The Elders' Assembly still functions in present day when some cultural issues are to be deliberated upon. For punishing offenders, there existed on the Rategiwa hill a prison which was used to detain major offenders. Our guide took us to the point which served as the prison area.
This baobab tree you are seeing was the point where the house of the prison guard was. When people were arrested, they were brought and gathered at this point. At that time, once someone was asked to come up this way, he began to shiver because only offenders and their keepers came this way. As such, whoever was asked to come up this way knew he had offended.
Also of tourism significance is the hut which Sanda himself used as his sitting room. It was also used by subsequent Dukkawa rulers who lived on the Rategiwa hills. The name of the town Rijau has its trace to Rategiwa hills. Rategiwa hill remains of great significance to all Dukkawas, and its historical importance needs to be kept alive.
When we talk of the Rategiwa hill, historically, every Dukkawa by tribe is proud of that place because it is the first hill for the settlers of Dukkawa that anybody, any tribe that you think is living within the regional local government, he made that hill, and he made Dukkawa of Rategiwa in that place, followed by that of Kiroho. Even when the missionary came to Rijau, some of them visited the area, and they are very, very interested to see the way they can even modernize the place themselves. But now it is my own time. So I want to use this opportunity to see what I can do so that those places, Ratagiwa, Kiruho, even including Sanjir, will be able to know that with the way we can develop the place to be a tourism area, inshallah. Therefore, with this opportunity, I think I'm appealing to our Niger State government. If we are in the process of doing that, I'm sure they will make their own contribution.
The grave of Sanda, fondly called Rategiwa, and other Dukawa chiefs who lived and died on the hill are still visible for a tourist or visitor to see, but need to be maintained. Rategiwa Hill is so elaborate in expanse that Rategiwa himself, his people, and subsequent generations of traditional Dukawas who lived on the hill never had any problem living there at all. The security concern, which was the main consideration, was aptly achieved. As such, in history, the Dukawas of Rijau and its environs were never conquered in any war. Today, the few families up the hill who still practice traditional religion enjoy better fresh air. Being high up and life for them is enjoyable. During reign of Sanda at Rategiwa Hill, the need arose for expansion of territory. In this regard, the story of Rategiwa Hill will not be complete without talking about the Kirho Hill.
To start with, and very fast, Kirho simply means son, like it were in the days of old, during Golmo. So the Kirho and Rategiwa people were in one of their suitors' farm. So while they were farming, they just discovered that the sun was not moving. And the idea was, whoever tied the sun, the idea was for them to farm a very big portion of land. So when they discovered that the sun was not moving, they now turned behind and looked at the old man and said, Ekag Kirho, meaning they have tied the sun. Ekag Kirho, they have tied the sun. That was where the name Kirho came from. And Kirho means a town and at the same time a people. And the people in question are referred to as Kirhone, while the town is Kirho. And like you rightly said, they are extraction from Rategiwa Hills. And the first person who settled here, his name is Magaji Guntu from Rategiwa Hills. Then you later have other visitors coming.
The settlement of Magaji Guntu and his people reflects the expansion of territory, authority, and the guarantee of security. As Magaji Guntu and his followers watch over Rategiwa's territory, stability of government was better achieved. In today's Dukawas culture, the lineages of some traditional title holders have their roots traced to their settlements on the Kirho Hill. The family of Magaji, meaning the inheritor, have the remains of their ancestral homes on the Kirho Hill, with some of them being rebuilt to keep the history alive. You will find even today the custodians of the Dukawa culture living on the Kirho Hill. You have the overall head, who is the chief priest known as Sarkin Safi. The Sarkin Safi is saddled with the responsibility of counting and ascertaining the accurate date of the annual Dukawa cultural festival, the Reng. He does that with the permission of the village head of Rategiwa. Other assistants of the Sarkin Safi, as custodians of the Dukawa culture, are the Magiros. They are the custodians of the Dukawa culture and followers of traditional religion. Typical Dukawas, as descendants of Rategiwa, apart from being great hunters, are also farmers. They also engage in petty trading, with some of them cattle rearers. The friendship which existed between Rategiwa and Sambo, the cattle rearer, resulted in some Dukawas influenced into rearing cattle. Presently, numerous villages of Dukawas are spread, with village heads being the traditional heads. The fact remains that villages such as Rategiwa, Kirho, Sanjir, Uddu, Darangi, among many others across Rijau local government area, are descendants of Sanda, the Rategiwa himself, with their ancient ancestral settlement traced to Rategiwa Hills. The development of tourism potentials of the Rategiwa Hills would mean additional opening for development of tourism in Nigeria. This ancestral home of the Dukawas in Rijau local government area of Niger State could rate as one of the major historical cities in Nigeria if fully developed. Our tourism potentials need to be fully harnessed, and Rategiwa Hill is begging for attention.